from the European Utility Week studio. We have a very exciting panel discussion this afternoon. So with me we have Tony Field, who's the chairman of the DLMS Association, Larry Colton, one of the directors of that association, and Rick Hanks, who is the Director for Innovation and Industry from Accenture.
Hi.
Gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us. Tony, I'm going to start off with a question predominantly for you, but if you gentlemen want to add in, please do so. And that is, collaboration is a really important part of any project. Why is it so important, particularly when choosing a data exchange specification?
Yes, absolutely. So large projects and smart meter rollouts normally involve a lot of moving parts. So a lot of moving parts means a lot of companies, a lot of contributions from lots of different directions. So collaboration is absolutely essential for that perspective, to involve all of the stakeholders, to make sure everybody is fully cognizant with everything that's going on in terms of the project, taking a system view of everything from top to bottom. If you look at one particular element in isolation, something won't work and the wheel will fall off. And you don't have an interoperable system. So from that perspective, it's absolutely essential. From the data exchange protocol perspective, and wearing my DLMS UA hat, I have to talk about the standardization process. Clearly it's very collaborative, involving all stakeholders from the utility background, from the manufacturing perspective, from system integrators perspective. In developing a standard in a consensus-based environment is really the only way to get solid, well thought out and well tested and approved specifications that can be relied upon for years to come.
Do either one of you have anything to add in terms of why collaboration is so key?
Well, just as a member of the DLMS Users Association, as well as a director, as you mentioned, the approach that the Users Association takes, it's a collaborative approach of all its members. So each member gets to add into the standard or add things that they know of value to their specific region, and it becomes enhanced because of that collaborative approach of all of its members. So it's not just on projects, but also as you're defining standards and the use cases that go into projects.
And I think I would add as well, as we put smart meters out, we are always extending the bounds of what we want the technology to do, which means we're doing new things. And if somebody tries something new, finds an issue, it's much better to go to a defined list to understand what's going on, or another expert to say, what if, have you seen this, what's the answer? And it's that collaboration that really drives us forward and saves us making all the same mistakes. So we can make the lessons learned really important.
Okay, so it's not just about working together to define a standard, but also working together to solve technical challenges that you may experience along the way. So Tony, one thing that you mentioned, and is something that has been raised multiple times, is the concept of interoperability. Now, in theory, it sounds like it should be really interesting, but in practice, not so much. Could you, I'm going to start with you, and we'll just move down the line. Why is this such a challenge?
It's a challenge because, again, there's a lot of moving parts. It's hugely complicated to get two devices that are made by two separate manufacturers or two systems that are designed by two software guys to work in exactly the same way. The starting point clearly is having a common language so that you can speak the same language to each other from devices to systems. The next thing is having a common vocabulary to make sure that you know the same words, you understand the same functions, and you can interpret the data in the same way. So having a good standard and a good baseline to base this on is the first step. The second point is having a good companion specification to ensure that you are supporting exactly the right data items. So it's very easy to say it, but it's difficult to do. And sometimes when people mean interoperability, when people say interoperability, they really mean interchangeability. And that is very hard to do and involves a very close attention to test cases and to negative testing, not just taking the sunny day scenario and assuming that everything will be fine. That's very, very difficult to do and takes a long time. And again, takes a lot of collaboration from many parties to ensure that it all works when it's in the field.
And how would you define interoperability versus interchangeability?
Okay, so interoperability is where two devices have the same understanding of a common language. Interchangeability is where you can take one device out and replace it with another, and all of the functions and the processes and all of the operations of that device are identical between the two devices.
Larry, you've been working as a consultant for a while. You've had some experience with some of this. What is your kind of feedback in terms of interoperability and interchangeability?
Well, I would agree with the way Tony defined it as interoperable and interchangeable. They're sometimes thrown together as the same, meaning the same thing, but they are not the same thing. So you want, within a system, you want things to be interoperable for sure, and then interchangeable is kind of the next level up, where you can actually replace one device with another device and you don't lose any of the features or functions that are part of it. But interoperability is a communication between those devices and making sure that they can communicate to one another.
Being based in the US, have you seen that the interoperability is a challenge between, say, US and European devices? Is this a global phenomenon?
Well, kind of, I guess each region, comparing North America to Europe anyway, has its own set of standards. So it has been a challenge in the past where you have vendors that support both regions. They're building products to multiple standards. And one of the things that's happened recently is an effort to take DLMS and COSAM to become a North American standard as well. So that process is going to help kind of move forward with the availability of interoperable products for both regions and not having independent solutions for different regions.
And Rick, from your perspective as a person who's got to try and make all of this work?
Yeah, it's a challenge making it work, and it's a multi-layered challenge. Because start off with, we do want standardization across geographies, because that means we can have cheaper products that are now proven work and just can be rolled out. If I take a client-centric view, I just want my solution, my smart meter deployment to roll out.
Yeah.
But then therefore I'm less worried about it globally, but I just want it to work. But the thing is as well, from the smart metering data, I want 100%, 99% guaranteed success. And getting into every property in the geography is really hard using one communication medium. So we always see multiple communication mediums used, and I want an interoperable layer sitting above the top, like DLMS, so that I know I can change the comms medium, but I can still get the application to work, and they all have the same behaviors. And from a business point of view, that's really, really important to me, because the customer doesn't care what the communication is. They just want an accurate bill, they want to be able to use pay-as-you-go energy, and that's so much more important. So interoperability is key to the success of that.
And therefore I'm assuming that the interchangeability then from a consumer perspective is really important as well.
Absolutely.
As opposed to, a meter is a meter to a certain degree, but if you're a consumer, you may want a meter that looks a certain way or has certain functionality as opposed to another.
Yeah. And we see it more in, say, in-home displays, where that's the customer view on our life. And actually, we shouldn't need to care what the meter is to change the in-home display. That should be very customer vision, and the meter, hopefully people won't look at the meters, right? We want them to sit in the cupboard and be quiet.
It's kind of like going to a restaurant. The more choices you have, the less choices you're able to make. It's like, I can't do this.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
So, ease of implementation, interoperability, interchangeability. Why are we not seeing this happening quicker? I realize that it's complicated, but if they can do it with a Wi-Fi device, why is this not happening so easily or so quickly across our industry?
Well, I think we see Wi-Fi today, and we use it as a ubiquitous standard for pretty much everything, for all connected devices, your phones, your laptop. But what we don't see is the pain and the suffering that happened with all of the Wi-Fi Alliance in getting that standard to work perfectly and interchangeably across all geographies. It was a huge task. So that standardization effort and that hard work and the blood, sweat and tears that goes into creating interoperable standards happens everywhere. And it takes a period of time for them to become stable. And DLMS COSEM, for example, has been going for 20 years now. So we've had 20 years of this, of practicing making it interchangeable and interoperable across devices. So a lot of those lessons and that pain has already happened, and we've already been through it. So now it's a point of being stable. So it is easier if you pick the right standards, but if you start from scratch and invent your own thing and have a home-baked solution, you're going to be spending a long time getting it working.
And I completely agree, because you look at DLMS, this is our application layer. So every different country we go to, we have new regulation, invariably, and that causes the DLMS to change slightly. So if I take a UK-centric view, prepayment, new introduction, and that means we have to evolve the standards. But I would much prefer start with a standard that is mature and evolve it, rather than start from scratch, because then I'm finding out all the wrinkles that you've had 20 years of experience fixing. So open standards that are common and we can globalize them are really, really important.
And I was going to say, and the other thing to consider too is that utilities have different timetables for deploying their solutions. So over the past 20 years, different utilities in different countries have started to do the project, and then they might have multiple phases. So as this has been deployed, you're looking for interoperability, but it becomes a moving target along the range. And so the utilities couldn't sit back and wait until everything was defined. So that moving target now has continued to evolve, and where we're closer to a more stable point we are today than we were, say, 20 years ago.
I suppose it's hard to think that it is almost 20 years since the first big smart metering rollout was done here in Europe, which was, of course, Enel. So much has changed.
It is, and they're doing it again, right? So
I know.
and they have new ideas, and so they want to extend it into new use cases, and new value, and new benefits. It's great that it's proven its worth, but we can now extend it again.
Yeah. I suppose one of the things then that becomes really important of being part of an association like DLMS is that you are constantly being exposed to updates, innovation, but also an expanding support network as well. If I may ask, how many members do you currently have?
Yeah, we've got around 300 members at the moment that have been built up over the years. We win some, we lose some every year, but the same as every association. People come and go depending on what their projects are.
Yeah.
But there's normally there is a core of members that have been there for a long time and supported it right from the very beginning. Some of the big manufacturers, some of the popular utilities that you'll see exhibiting here at the show have been members for a long period of time.
And Tony, I'm going to ask you this specifically again in your role, and Larry, please, if you have anything that you'd like to add, please do so. With regards to the next iteration, the next step forward, what does that look like?
In terms of the DLMS COSEM standard, it's always taking steps forward. It's a continually iterative process. It's never done. It's a bit like the football, right? You never get to the ultimate result of who's the best team, but always new features are coming in, always new requests. The great part of having a ubiquitous application layer that you can use across any lower layers is that there's always new technologies that are coming along, new media that we are requested to support. The application layer doesn't change, but we can run over any other lower layers, which is great. So the new features that we're looking at now, always supporting newer lower layers, but there's an awful lot of effort that's been put into efficiency savings in the protocol to make it really skinny, make it more IoT friendly so that it can run over some of the more constrained application layers, the constrained lower layers that we see these days.
Yeah, so as Tony said, it continues to evolve and expand the DLMS standard. Some of the things are adding new technologies to be utilized as part of the standard. We're augmenting the standard to create new profiles that new solutions can utilize and interface at the application layer. Other things as far as security, continuing to enhance security, which becomes a ever-growing concern of utilities in the industry. And also expanding the use and acceptance of the standard worldwide. So it's not only just a European standard, but something of importance to North America and Asia as well.
If I may ask, your geographic spread of members, predominantly Europe and North America, or?
A huge population in Asia as well.
Okay.
We're getting more and more members coming from the US side of things, North America, some from Latin America. So there's a big spread, and we're just working on that all the time and trying to convince people and sell the message of DLMS COSEM to those who've never heard of it or may think that another solution's better. It's a continual job. but at the moment we've got a good supporting membership spread fairly well across the globe.
So a truly global standard.
Absolutely.
Well, that's fantastic to hear.
And of course all of the stuff that we do within the user association goes straight into IEC, so it automatically becomes an international standard. Stuff that we do that's outside of the realm of electricity metering goes in through SEN TC294, so that also becomes a European standard. Not quite international, but at least it's standardized through a formal SDO.
Rick, any thoughts from you in terms of open standards, interoperability, device interchangeability, what this means for the sector, for associations?
So I'm a big fan, right, of open standards, because it enables utilities to solve problems that they have, but equally mitigate any risks in their supply chain, so they can swap devices out if there's a massive component failure or we have an issue, with a particular manufacturing part. So that interoperability really helps, from a aids competition. Lots of different manufacturers can play in the market, enable new innovation coming forward, which is really, really important to the market. So absolutely, I'm all for open standards, especially if we can drive that on different interoperability layers, which you talked about, new communication protocols at that transport layer, and put DLMS on top. If I can get that to work and expand into different areas beyond the meter, that's great. That's a much better business case for the utility.
So before we wrap up, just wanted to ask, any last thoughts?
Buy DLMS.
Yeah, can't ask for anything more succinct than that. Larry?
Well, I guess just when you talk about true interoperability, there's a lot of benefits it can provide. There's enough risk associated with smart metering projects.
Yeah.
So by having true interoperability, it does help reduce the risk of the project. It gives the flexibility, gives the utility flexibility over the life of the system, when some of these can be 20 plus years. And then overall, having true interoperability is going to lower the cost of the ultimate solution.
Okay. And Rick?
Yeah, so I would say, if you look at the way that people interact nowadays, we're a lot more collegiate. The internet enables us to communicate with a lot more people. What I would say to anybody doing a smart metering project today, leverage the expertise of people around the world in things like the DLMS User Association to solve your problems for you. Don't fight alone, right? Come to us, and if you have found something new, then let's let the global community understand what the issue is and resolve it for everybody, not just for yourself. So I would say collaboration, key.
Okay, so collaborate and take advantage of people that have been through the same processes as what you've already is what you're going to be going through, right?
Yeah, learn from others, absolutely.
All right. Unfortunately, we have reached the end of our available time, but thank you so much to all of you for yours. And from European Utility Week, thanks so much for watching.